So yeah, I was just walking around minding my own business when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy hands me this envelope.
We're sitting.
You seem to be sitting, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sitting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I was walking before, but now I'm sitting. Oh, and you're the guy. Yeah. And it, by the way, it says something inside. It's like a fortune cookie. We're being asked, what is our house sound? Like, how do we approach that? How do we get at our house sound on our headphones?
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, we talked about frequency response in the past and how we kind of don't pay too much attention to measurements in terms of tuning our headphone. So I'm assuming we want to discuss, like,
What are you looking
how do we
for?
tune our headphone?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have measurements.
What are you targeting if you're not using measurements?
Yeah.
So this is a pretty common one in the industry. A lot of people know particular brands of headphone sounds a particular way. They have a kind of uniform sound across the range more often than not. Everybody knows more or less, if they're looking for a darker sound or a brighter sound, what brands more or less appeal to that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we kind of target is what we perceive to be flat neutral, but that is oddly enough
Well, in our
variable
sense,
for people.
in our
It's how
sense,
we
what's
perceive
neutral
it.
is not what some people consider neutral, as in
Right.
measurement neutral.
Right.
Or studio neutral. Which
Is that
I
a
guess,
term?
I guess,
Studio
I
neutral?
guess it's kind of like shades of gray. Everyone has a different idea of what gray is. I could show you gray and you'll call it gray, but there's a million freaking shades of
And
gray.
those little tuning differences in the shades make a big difference in what it actually
so
looks like.
what do we tune for? Well, I think what helps us in one respect is that we all grew up. You're my kids, so we all grew up in the same house, listening to the same stereo when you were younger.
That's
right?
true.
So we had a common perspective in terms of what what playing back music would sound like for years, until you finally moved out and got your own damn room with your own stuff in it, right? Well, but you're talking about a majority of your life.
Still using the same speakers as then.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So and so you're just accustomed to
Yeah,
it.
so is he actually.
Yeah, I mean, mine are
Right,
probably
like
over
20
15 years
years.
old too. I haven't, really. I've tried other speakers. I own other speakers, but I keep coming back to my Merlins, VSMs, and well, yeah, you've had yours for a long time too.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're used to what we do, how we do it, what we're listening for, But more importantly, I think boiling that down, distilling that down into a headphone would seem to be a bit of a piece of magic trick because, I don't think people would understand how that is accomplished. And
It takes a lot of time. Even after you do it for a long time, you have to live with something for like days
yeah,
to like really know that for sure that what you initially thought was right.
Yeah.
You can't just
Yeah.
make a snap judgment on anything.
It's surprising how big of an impact that is.
Yeah.
Because you could hear something on a show, you put headphones on or whatever, you're listening to an amplifier or something, and depends on the track you're listening to. Some amplifiers or headphones or whatever, on some particular songs sound awesome, and on others they just fall apart. It's surprising how big of a difference that is. And if you haven't been to a trade show, you might not know this. If you haven't listened to a whole bunch of random stuff, sometimes it's just you hear a track and it just absolutely obliterates the system and it just falls apart. It sounds awful. And hear another track, it's amazing. So you would think that there would be a narrower window, but oddly enough, no. Tuning something is tricky because you need to get it right for everything.
Yeah.
Unless you know somebody's listening to it, just this tiny little narrow window of genre, you
Make
got to
a-
get it right for everything.
a headphone per genre.
Right. Some people do that. They
I
have
think
that's
different
true.
amps
I
and
think we
stuff.
came up with that at one point, didn't we?
Yeah.
We'll make a rock and roll headphone. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you could make
You
it a
could,
little bit
but,
more laser focused, but
Yeah.
it's really hard to get it right for everything. And that's why it takes, one of the reasons why it takes so long to really know if this is right for you. You got to listen to all different stuff in a little bit different settings over a wide enough period of time that you're comfortable and confident that this thing does what you want and what you expect. It doesn't have any weird anomalies.
Well, that's the thing. I think we have, because we've heard so many systems over the years, in the two-channel world particularly, right? Not the headphones. I mean, you go back a dozen years, we didn't use headphones, but we've heard so many systems in sonic traits and characters and different amplification and tubes and solid state and class A and A, B and D, and we get quite a range in your head of what the capabilities are of playback.
Yeah.
Where can you take it? And sometimes you hear these systems that are just phenomenal, and you're like, that's what I'm shooting for, and you go with it. And I think your brain is pretty good at remembering some of these things, even though they say the auditory memory is short, few seconds, blah, blah, blah. But in reality of it, it's an experience. If you have that type of experience, it'd be,
It doesn't happen often.
yeah, right. But when it
But
does,
you
you
remember it.
really do remember.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 things.
you
that
got
I
enough
remember.
data points to know where you're, when you hear that again,
Yeah,
you'd know it.
yeah.
And that's so now if you get to play like we do in materials and stuff like that, you can shoot for that so that you do hear it again.
Well, I think that's
know?
the biggest thing is getting used, like making a change, like developing a new headphone, and you just listen to that headphone every day, just that headphone, nothing else, and then you get used to it, and then you go back to what you're currently making, and then see that you'll know immediately is like, oh man, this is like that was what I was listening to is way
Yeah.
off or something.
Yeah.
So I think going back is always the thing.
Oh,
that tells you.
absolutely.
The
Yeah.
initial going to something new, usually you're not like, wow, but
Yeah.
it's going back to what you know is like, man, that's
Yeah, did it get better or
Yeah, better or
worse?
worse,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the litmus test.
yeah, and it's like instant.
I've had people do that with years ago with cables. I get some guys, and musicians tend to listen to different things than audiophiles do. They're listening for tempo and beat, and they're trying to play with other people, and it's a whole different thing they listen
Well, yeah.
to. And I remember throwing like guitar cables at some of these guys. Hey, let's try this, and they couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
And they'd have the cable in there. They'd use it for a week or two. Say, man, I just can't hear it. And then they pull the cable out. They go back to what they had, and it's like, oh man, this sounds completely different now. And it's like funny because they couldn't hear the changing to the cable, a different guitar cable, but they could hear it when it was gone.
A lot of times it's
You
like
know,
that.
and it's
Well,
sometimes
that's why you got to get used to it
Right.
in the new configuration.
yeah,
So then when you go back, it's like, oh,
yeah.
immediate.
But once you do hear that difference, once you can
Yeah, you get better.
get that in your head, right? That's
Yeah.
the beginning of it. That opens up a whole new window of, let's call it, opportunity in terms of where you can take this listening thing, and it's called experience. It just takes time.
We talk about that a fair bit, but I think experience is more important in this industry than a lot of people would realize. Having heard a whole bunch of systems that sound awful is really important because they sound awful in different ways.
Yeah, right.
They always do, right? Until you really hear something that just sounds really strange, and then you go back to something that's normal, and you could kind of laser in and what was wrong with that system.
Right.
You don't really know. You don't hear it immediately in a new setup. You don't hear those types of faults. But if you hear a whole bunch of weird systems and weird setups and all different configurations over a long period of time, it makes it really easy to know what you personally like, what you expect to hear, what you consider to be normal or average. And you can kind of use other information too. You could see what other people like, what people around you find enjoyable, what people at a show say, wow, this is the greatest thing.
Sure.
You could put all this information together and you could really come up with an average pretty easily of what people expect or what people like to hear, what's enjoyable for most.
And it's not necessarily just the headphone. It could be the electronics you're mixing with it and
Well,
so
yeah.
on.
There's a lot of-
the,
of variables,
The music
yeah.
that people that your customer base is actually listening to at the show or at the time you're playing it. So, and how that's basically the whole package has to be presented in a certain way initially up front. Because every customer is looking for something a little bit different, I think. Even though they don't realize they're actually looking for the same thing, up front they're
Well,
looking
yeah.
for something a little different.
Yeah,
because they
that's
all
the
have
thing.
different levels of experience.
Yeah, I remember at a show like 8 years ago, maybe now, there was a guy that came into a room and he walked in and he looked at the speakers and he said, sounds like boxes, and then walked out.
Yeah.
Didn't even listen to it, right?
Yeah.
But he saw that they weren't, whatever, he's probably used to electrostats or
Like
something.
bipolars or
yeah,
something, yeah, right.
And he's like, there's no way I can like this, and
Yeah.
left.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, that's,
So
it is what
he
it
just
is.
wants to hear what he's used to.
Yeah,
That's-
and that's fine, But like I think we brought this up in another video, is you should be expanding to understand how, like you said, with the distortion characteristics, or you didn't put it that way, but understanding the negatives of why systems sound bad,
Right.
certainly is a good direction and to make them sound better. And it's understanding those particular distortion characteristics. Like, for example, you've done a shit ton of tuning on, future generations of headphones. Right now you've been in your spare time at home, you're always tweaking something. I mean, what are you listening for? What are you exactly listening for?
Well, that's kind of, there's no like particular thing, I don't think.
No?
Because I listen to like a lot of, I try to listen to a lot of different music,
Right.
and I don't change anything often. Like, it's always the same amp that I'm always
Because that can
using, same
confuse
DAC,
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, try to keep everything as similar as possible.
Yeah.
And ideally, I just want it to sound like there are no headphones. you
Right.
know?
Yeah, like you're in the middle of the room with the
Yeah.
band type thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what same with me. I'm after a live effect, so to speak, from the recording, where, like I've said before, like I'm standing on the microphone, you know, and I'm sure you're the same way, because who do you think taught you? But no, I mean we're all self-taught for the most part.
Well, yeah.
But clues, when people give you clues, the more experienced people give you clues of what to listen for,
Yeah.
it speeds the process dramatically.
Yeah, you could speed it up a lot,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, if you do it by yourself and you don't know where you're going, you don't have a direction, you might never happen,
Well,
you know? But yeah. But I mean, owning our headphones is certainly key. I mean, I'm not trying to say it from a marketing standpoint, but all this experience that we have is in that driver, you know? This is middle ground here, true middle ground. It could do such amazing things with music, you know, that this is where you start with this and you build around it, whether it be your experience, your equipment, whatever, you know, it makes it simple. And I think that's why people like particularly the V2 lately. The Diana V2 has been pretty popular lately. A, because we've made some noise about it and viewers have latched on and realized what this thing's really doing. B, the equipment's come up to speed for it. You got better and better portable gear for it and stuff like that. It didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. You know, there's all kinds of reasons why, but you know, in the end, though, you know, people are putting this on their head and going, I mean, the positive feedback has been crazy lately. And they're just like, oh, man, thank you for, you know, selling me this type thing, you know, and it's like, but they're loving it. They're loving it. You know, I saw a thread on the Diana thread on HeadFi, it was the last week or so, the guy was like, I put these on and I don't feel like playing video games anymore. I'm not watching TV. I just don't want to take them off, you know. And he said, thank you. And he's appreciative of that, which is really cool to be able to have that kind of effect on a person's life,
Yeah.
you know. Really cool.
well, I guess it kind of makes sense because it's kind of looking for the same thing, you know. Kind of want to make a headphone that you want to use, you know.
Yeah, all the time. You
I
know?
think live music always is a reference, or at least should be for most people, because that's probably what was recorded, and so that's what you're trying to play back and reproduce. But there's a few nuances there, because there's different venues that sound different, and some that people like more than
Yeah.
others, right? The environment you're in makes a difference, and sometimes this is eliminated in the recording, other times it's very present, and it really depends on the type of music you listen to, how you want to listen to it, but there does seem to be a middle ground of what most people find to be neutral, preferable, enjoyable. And for me, that's what I look for. And how you tune for that, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I think the experience is the biggest impact. Understanding what you don't like is probably more important than understanding what you do. It's easier to hear what you don't like, I think. Because you could put on a lot of headphones and you could find an enjoyable experience in them. If you put a lot of time into it and you don't hear anything
Probably with
else,
certain tracks or certain recordings.
you could find some things
Yeah.
they do well
Yeah.
until you hear something better. And then you go back and you realize, well, wow,
Yeah.
there was a lot of faults with that. But you don't immediately hear them until you really have the experience.
Yeah.
So I think having some experience with live music, having a lot of experience with different equipment and gear and what the faults commonly are with these typical designs, and always having a reference to fall back to, maybe several reference even.
Right.
That seems to be preferential. Personally, I always go back to other models. I have the same headphone that I've always used, not even like, you know, the same model, but the exact same one that's been sitting there. It's only
Yeah.
used
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a reference,
Right.
right? And you fall back to those to see where the changes were, and you take into account customer feedback and what people say about your headphone, how it fits in the space in the market, what other people think about your headphone or whatever. That seems to be helpful information into ensuring that your expectations, the customer's expectations are being met.
What do you default to? Probably a pair of TCs you got at home?
I have, it's kind of bad now. Like at this point, I
kinda
got
bad.
like seven headphones out
Oh
right now.
shit! Oh,
But
yeah.
they're all the same one. Like I always use the same one, so it's like it's the first Diana.
Yeah.
And I always use the same one.
Yeah.
And I have a Phi and I have a TC. But yeah, and then I have the current revisions of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, right now I got like 7 or 8 headphones just
Oh,
sitting there.
Jesus.
Right.
So what do you do? Just randomly pick one, or what do
No,
you do?
I don't usually go back.
Oh.
I usually only
So
go
you're listening to
forward.
the latest gen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just there. If I never needed them before, but they are just sitting there
Yeah.
in a pile.
Yeah, I got 4 or 5 at home. I'm not up to 7 yet, but
Yeah, I've never went back.
I'm gonna need a tree to hold these things. I don't have any good way to. They're all sitting against the wall in the back of the sound room.
Yeah.
You need a way to hold that many headphones.
Look, yeah, yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
there's no good way.
Yeah, the headphones they all stay the same because I just use the same physical headphone shells and everything and just change the drivers. So yeah, they're all different colors and stuff. They got different color headbands.
Leftover parts.
Yeah, just whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
none of them look factory.
Well, hell, you put them together, so
Yeah.
you know how to put them together. It's not like
Yeah.
they're just because they don't look good doesn't mean they don't sound good, right?
Yeah, they're all
In
mismatched.
fact, that's a good way to fool yourself. You want to you do your own double blinds against yourself. It's just
Well,
I don't even know what the hell this
well,
is.
I do know which random colors mean what.
Yeah.
It's
See,
like,
I couldn't even do that. I'd forget it in a day. I'd go back and go, I don't know what the hell drivers are in here. I'll just put them on and go, oh yeah, though you could just listen to it. And go, oh yeah, that's a V1.
I did finally. Yeah, I have a production Dianify in a production color, all one color.
Yeah.
So if it looks like it's production, it is. And then I have a V2 too.
Yeah.
That's actually not a
I'm
production
almost sorry I asked him what he uses for the default. So what exactly do you default to? It doesn't matter. You just pick one of the latest ones. Sometimes you feel like a 1266.
I always use the latest one.
Yeah.
And I rarely use 12.
But which one? Oh, okay. So you're usually in a Diana
Yeah.
position. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, because my 1266 is on the other amp, so I'm usually at my computer.
I see. Got it. So it's
So-
more of a location
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm always in the same spot. I'm always in my sound room at home, so I just plug in whatever.
Mm.
I have a pair of Dianifys and a pair of 1266s, both plugged into the WA33.
You have all production headphones, don't you?
Well, pretty much, yeah. I have an OG. Yeah, right. I have all productions, yeah.
Ooh, I don't have an OG. I don't have any. All I got is a TCC now.
Yeah, I don't bring the prototypes, really. I don't think I have any prototypes. It's just that stuff lays around here, or you take it home or something like that.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
I have all of them. Nobody else
Oh,
has.
well, then he's
You're
got
the only
'em.
other one with one prototype,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, yeah. Technically, they're all prototypes. They just look more or less like factory configurations.
It's true.
But the baffles aren't laser. They're
Yeah,
the
yeah.
wrong
No,
color.
yeah, that's the other way I know is I never laser them, so I could tell if it's like, well, I made this one then. So they don't have any markings on them.
Anyway, yeah, no, but that's the fun of it, though. You get to rock through our history once in a while if you wanted to. There's no reason to, really. I mean, like, I do the same thing. I'll listen to a V2, a Phi, or a 1266 TC, and
I guess the same goes for like
it
cars
depends.
and speakers. I'd say the same thing. Why would you? It's like
Yeah.
you get a new, better car, you probably wouldn't use your old car
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, you might want to keep it just for nostalgia's sake. But
Yeah,
you get back in and you're
takes
like,
up a lot of space.
this is not as good. I'll just drive the better.
Yeah,
one."
right. Yeah.
So
That-
same
that-
kind of thing.
That and the only reason I really rock through different amps, like I usually prefer the TC. The only reason I really go through the various models would be if I'm trying to assess an amplifier or anything within a system chain.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm.
Yeah, new amp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
I
I
go to a
can-
TC. Then.
Yeah, because I could triangulate better because I know the sounds of our three current models. I know what they'll do. I'll know what they do on all the gear we have here. So the question is, what are they doing on this new piece we just introduced into
Yeah.
the system? Is it taking any of them further ahead than we thought, or is it going backwards? And so that's, to me, it's a good indication of, I've learned, like I think a lot of people have, you never want to necessarily put all your eggs in one basket, whether it be a speaker, an amp, or a DAC. It's nice to, when you're assessing one piece, let's say someone sends us a DAC. I always like to kind of mix up the power cords, the cables going to it, the headphones, to give it the best shot. You know what I mean? I want to see if this piece has merit in what we're doing, or if it doesn't. If it doesn't, no problem. If it does, great, we can recommend it. So I'm always looking for something. And sometimes, like we found that Italian amp, that Pathos in Polier, for whatever reason, worked tremendously well on Dianify. It wasn't bad on the other headphones, not
No.
bad at all.
No.
But for whatever reason, with their circuit topology, which they have a unique circuit, especially in the bass region. Like, it's a very
Yeah.
different amplifier sound, and kind of reminds me a bit of the way the Rogue does it too, like their RH5 or whatever it's called. It does bass in a different way,
Yeah. I was listening to that yesterday, actually.
Yeah, we just got it. We just started playing with it
Yeah.
again. We got so many toys lately,
Yeah.
and it just does it in a different way. And it's certain topologies that tend to mix well, I think, with, depending on the headphone, the damping, how you wear it, blah, 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 the music you listen to.
Well, yeah. That was the conclusion I came to yesterday with the Rogue. is it's a rock machine.
Oh yeah,
Like it's great with like vinyl
yeah,
and like classic rock.
I believe it.
It's like I'm assuming that he's a big
Mark
classic
O'Brien is into rock and roll.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he's
I've
classic
done
rock.
some trade shows with him years ago.
rock.
And
Yeah.
let me tell you something. When the drinks come out, you can't even hear anything in
Yeah.
the room.
Oh, so that is correct. Then.
He likes to have. He
It sure
likes
sounds-
power. He likes to move air.
It sure sounds like
So
whoever designed
his
it.
equipment tends to be similar to that too, and
Yeah.
it's pretty good. It's good, well balanced. It's very reasonably priced, and but yeah, he's rock and roll definitely.
Yep.
But and it makes sense, and that's kind of an inside thing too, where the designers,
Well, yeah.
where I don't know if we ever brought this up, but the products that the designers design tend to match their personalities.
Well, like Cavalli,
if you
same
knew
thing.
them, yeah.
It's like protection.
Yeah, really, yeah. Turn off if you look at it the wrong way.
Yeah. And then other people, no protection.
Yeah,
and
all
just,
right, whatever. Blow up headphones.
Yeah.
I'm all right with that.
So, yeah.
But yeah, it's the designers have a lot of influence in the overall sound of the product, and
Well, yeah.
usually you can look at their personalities and match it up if you know the designer, if you ever meet
Right.
them in person. I don't think it works well if you're typing to them on the internet, but if you actually meet them in person, maybe have a beer with them or something, you get to know somebody a little better than the cold hard text of an iPhone. So yeah, we obviously have a house sound, and we continue to improve on getting closer and closer to being on the microphone with that sound. We keep our sound, and we improve clarity. And I think that's where we're going with this lately. Is we improve clarity without changing tonality. Really, really hard to do. Really hard.
Well,
Requires multiple disciplines to be able to do that.
it's
Material
getting
science.
harder, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's getting harder. Yeah. But we'll keep doing it. But right now, I think we're in a good place. Our three models are. People are loving them. They're meshing well with the current electronics that are out there, and so right now we got to finish that close back.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. That was supposed to be done already. This year's been so screwed up, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll work on that.
As always, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Let us know what you'd like to see in the comments below. And stay subscribed to see more content like this. Take care, guys.